Welcome to the 160th session that Time Mumbai has hosted since lockdown. We are very happy to announce that our reach has crossed more than 70 cities and more than 25,500 plus participants have attended our webinars and sessions. We have the special interest group that has taken off since the lockdown, which is Thai Food Network. And please do follow us on our social media for our regular updates. Also, to start off with the session, I'm introducing SANKET, who will be the moderator for the session. He has been in the food industry since a decade now. From being a fresh food player, he has gradually ventured into idiot-proof food solutions, and he is venturing into the frozen food supply. It's been, he's actually hosted and participated in more than 2,000 events, days across 14 cities in India over the last 3 years. So over to you, Sanket, please take it ahead.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hope all of you are eating well. So assuming that now some of the top line has started ticking again for the food industry, and it definitely never stopped, paused for the D2C industry, we thought today we should touch upon topics that will convince you to concentrate on your core competence, advantages of delegating supply chain to the experts, and thus eventually optimizing bottom line. To help us understand the concept of 3PL and everything supply chain, we have three stalwarts from the industry. Let me introduce them individually. SABYASACHI heads the newly set up hyperlocal business vertical at Delhivery. At Delhivery, he has set up the consumer business vertical for them. Prior to his startup experience, he was in consulting, having worked with a variety of clients across industries. SAURABH SHARMA has been part of the founding team and the first employee of Shadowfax. He has been responsible for leading growth and expansion from day -0 for Shadowfax. Before Shadowfax, he's run a restaurant, he's sold credit cards, he's been a management consultant, he's managed large events, and his love for food comes from his background of a degree from IHM. VRAJ is a director in KPMG India's Lighthouse practice, a dedicated set of industry professionals focused on big data predictive analysis. He specializes in supply chain analytics. He has an enormous experience of 16 years spanning multi-continents. Prior to KPMG, VRAJ has been a successful entrepreneur, and he had co-founded an edtech company which he sold to an NYSE listed company. VRAJ has worked extensively on projects with some of the largest 3PLs, package delivery and financial services companies in the areas of package center optimization, supply network, simulation, warehousing, and process modeling and analytics. I'll jump to the Q&A. SABYASACHI, I'll start with you, if I can call you Sabya.
Yes.
First of all, congratulations on launching a new vertical at Delhivery, the hyperlocal division. Would you want to take us through a few models Delhivery operates on?
Sure. Okay. Hi everyone. Yes, you can call me Sabya. See, Delhivery, it started around 2011, right? 2011, 2012. So it's been around for 8 to 9 years. So it's, it's now a well-entrenched sort of startup at scale in some ways, right? While we started off with a B2C model, which is essentially the whole e-commerce delivery, building the whole e-commerce delivery infra network within the country, right? We gradually, gone ahead and become a more integrated logistics company, right? So B2C or e-commerce delivery still remains probably one of the largest verticals we have. But beyond that, over the last 4 to 5 years, we have gone ahead and built solutions looking at non-e-commerce segments and use cases, whether it is, part truckload, full truckload, warehousing, micro warehousing, last mile capabilities, and so on, right? And, over a period of time, because we've built capabilities and infra across these different kind of use cases and products, now we're able to integrate them into a single platform and provide an end-to-end solution to an enterprise. So essentially, an enterprise which wants to outsource its entire supply chain to a single player, right? Starting with, inbound warehousing, outbound last mile kind of logistics, we can provide an end-to-end solution backed with our own tech stack, right? To that extent, Hyperlocal, we recently launched, in fact, post the lockdown. The idea was, once the lockdown happened, we saw a lot of demand coming for a hyperlocal service. Our current clients coming back requiring such a service, because I think the nature of demand also structurally became a little bit more hyperlocal in nature, right? So it's typically a demand which would have been catered over a e-commerce platform and would have been a intercity kind of fulfillment, led to an intra-city kind of fulfillment. And therefore, we saw a lot of use cases for hyperlocal, and that was the reason also for us to I think, having said that, given that we've been, we are the largest, I think, in terms of the e-commerce network that we have built. We are present across 18,000 plus pin codes. Therefore, to that extent, we had a very strong local presence, both in terms of the infra and in terms of having an on-ground delivery fleet, right? And for us was to figure out what is the right way to utilize on the back of this kind of infra and fleet, build a hyperlocal service which can cater to multiple segments. Food obviously is one of the key segments there. Yeah. So I think that's a little bit in brief of what Delhivery does. And for us, hyperlocal, like I mentioned, we recently launched, and in the last couple of months, we've seen quite a good amount of traction from a bunch of clients across food, both from QSR chains as well as cloud kitchens, large and mid-sized kind of chains, and non-food, looking at grocery, looking at retail, different kinds of retail, and so on, right? Yeah, so yes.
That's interesting. I mean, 18,000 pin codes is enormous. So Saurabh, moving on to you, if you could tell us a little bit about the various models Shadowfax operates.
So, guys, Shadowfax as an organization, we got incepted in 2015, just 4 or 5 years post delivery, got into the play, and we started. So let me just briefly explain you the way logistics works. Logistics is essentially a 3-leg game. First mile, wherein you are picking up from the consumer or picking up from the manufacturing piece. Middle mile, which is essentially the line haul, reaching to the relevant last mile, to the last spots, and then the last mile, which is going towards the customer. So we started as a last mile logistics player, wherein we started from the food as a category, and then as we gradually grew, so we devised ourselves into various further subcategories of the last mile piece itself. So we are the biggest last mile players in the India market, catering to various categories. So when I'm talking about last mile, I'm talking about food, I'm talking about pharma, I'm talking about grocery, I'm talking about meat, I'm talking about alcobev, I'm talking about e-commerce. And now, as we are growing and as we realize the power of the network, apart from these particular categories, we have gone a step back, wherein we are building up from the back. So what I mean by that is we have created our own warehouses, we have our own distribution centers, we have got our own hubs in play, and we have started doing the first mile as well as the last mile. So from 2015 till now, so the way we have evolved is we started from the last mile delivery company, and now we aim to become one of the largest players in the entire ecosystem of the logistics play. So be it any kind of movement. So you want to move from Bangalore to Delhi, you want to play within Delhi, you want to play within a cluster, say in Delhi or in Bangalore or in Mumbai or in Ahmedabad for that matter, we'll be there and we are happy to present you. So in terms of food, if I could name some brands of food, McDonald's, KFC, Pizza Hut, Burger King, Swiggy, Zomatos of the world, all of them work with us. In terms of grocery, we are talking about Big Basket, Amazon Now, we are talking about future retail, Reliance coming into play, all of them work with us. In pharmacy, both online and offline players like Apollo's, 1mgs and the Pharmacy and the Guardians of the world, all of them work with us. So in e-commerce play, we are talking about the larger chunk, which is already moving, and I'm sure Delhivery and us would be sharing some clients, because nobody wants to work with only one player. They would always want to hedge and have some own fleet as well. Sure. So Flipkart, Amazon, all of them work with us as well. So yes, we are neck to neck competitors, but I think the only difference is that we started our first mile of the e-commerce business pretty late, and we are the pioneers of the last mile hyperlocal delivery business, which is essentially catering to the food, pharma, grocery, and alcobev and meat industry now. Yeah, that's right.
I think that's amazing. I mean, very contrasting perspectives. One has come from done a forward integration. One has done a backward integration. So Vraj, moving on to you. So please tell us a little bit more about the services Lighthouse provides in the supply chain analytics space.
Sure. Am I audible? Just doing a double check.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfectly audible.
So Lighthouse is our global moniker, if I may say so, for all things data and analytics. So we are a large practice spread out across India, and few of us partners and directors run that business within KPMG. We offer end-to-end solutions in analytics. So the way we look at it is that we have a sectoral focus that we marry with a very powerful technology and analytics focus. So you can look at us in terms of like a matrix, where we sit in multiple pockets in creating value for our customers. So from a supply chain perspective, we go beyond 3PLs, right? We take a very holistic view of the business because our DNA is such that we do consulting, right? So we look at everything. We look at all KPIs from, as Saurabh was saying very rightly, from the first mile to line haul all the way to last mile, right? But when it also comes to working with manufacturing companies that have fairly large dependencies on logistics, we get involved over there also, because we get involved all the way from procurement, all the way to supply network design and optimization and warehousing and feeders, etc., all the way down to rough cut capacity planning, to sales and operations planning, to master scheduling, all the way to dispatch, and then end and last mile delivery. So our analytics solutions are spread across the board. But I will say there are 2 or 3 clear areas where we have a lot of expertise. One is around data lakes. And that is, in fact, one of the, I would say, flagship solutions that we offer, where we are able to take all sorts of data, streaming, non-streaming data, batch data, ERP data, TMS data, WMS data, and bring that all together. And with the whole IoT focus, we are seeing that vehicles, telematics, all of these things are growing as well. So getting that data into one particular repository, massaging that and building a data warehouse on top of it, and then building advanced analytical solutions on top of that, right? So data lakes and data warehousing is one proposition, which is around data management. The second area is, of course, you get into dynamic process analytics, where you're actually taking this massage data. Now, be it data in terms of your delivery times, be it data in terms of your truckloads, be it data in terms of the Gs that your truck is actually moving at when it takes a turn at 60 kmph, right? All of those things we then actually analyze, and we are able to give you insights and recommendations. So that's our dynamic process analytics area. And the third area is artificial intelligence and machine learning. And we are seeing that there's a lot of traction right now, not only from a manufacturing standpoint, even in 3PLs and even in transportation solutions. Because the whole idea is, how do we use AI and ML, and in combination with other transformative technologies like blockchain, how do you actually take that to create a better customer experience? How do you actually use that to, sweat your assets and get every nickel out of it? So I think, so that's the area that we play in, which is fairly broad. So yeah.
I think if cash flow is king, I think today data is the kingdom. So I think, very interesting on what you're doing. So Sabya, so Delhivery is a huge logistics player providing end-to-end supply chain offerings. So how do they benefit the food and D2C industry? What problems does it look to solve for the industry?
Okay. See, like I mentioned, right? So over the years, Delhivery has built capability across different legs of supply chain, right? Whether, as Saurabh mentioned, whether it's first mile, mid mile, or last mile, right?
Sure.
Now, in terms of last mile, we have the largest presence catering to e-commerce deliveries. So the 18,000 pin codes I mentioned are the ones where we are doing deliveries for e-commerce, whether it's a large horizontal like Amazon, Flipkart, or whether they are a bunch of large mid-sized e-commerce vertical companies, right? Now, for us, therefore, we already had a very strong local last mile presence. The idea was to create an offering, leveraging those capabilities, offering a product which can cater to a hyper-local kind of a point-to-point within a certain radius within a city, that kind of product, right? Now, so specifically for food, right? So the way we look at this is, we are a third-party logistics provider, right? And we are able to provide, given our sort of last mile experience, our infra and our tech, right? We are able to provide a product which can meet a certain service level requirements that food requires, right? Till now, if you see at the food industry, right, and looking at the whole home delivery space, right, most of the the players within the food space now, whether they are a cloud kitchen, whether they are a large QSR chain, a mid-size, or even the smaller guys, right? A lot of them are dependent on an aggregator like a Zomato and Swiggy for demand generation as well as fulfillment, right? Obviously some of these guys do the fulfillment on their own, but that not in all of the cases that's the most optimal or effective model, right? Either you run the risk of missing out on orders during peak hours because you may not have enough delivery fleet of your own, or if you build a large fleet, then how do you utilize that fleet during the day, right? So that is where we come in, right? If you're looking at fulfillment, and now I see post lockdown, lot of players trying to do demand generation of their own, going beyond the aggregator, like reducing the dependence on an aggregator, and either coming out with their own app. So for instance, McDonald's is coming up with their own app, right? A lot of the other guys are thinking of coming up with their own app, right? Either their own app or using some kind of other, discovery platform. Fulfillment will come into the picture, right? How do you do this whole home delivery stuff? How do you enable the whole contactless dining, right? Not everyone would want to go into a restaurant, either eat or even do a takeaway, right? So it's not just the QSR chains, but even the dine-in restaurants who traditionally have depended on walk-ins, they are also looking at getting deliveries done, right? Now, for all of these disparate use cases, we become as a third-party logistics provider, where we essentially get those order fulfills and sort of ensuring the same kind of service level or a better service level than what you would have seen in the days when you are just dependent on an aggregator for a demand generation and fulfillment, right? So net, the way the delivery comes in is, you are generating your own orders either through your app or through WhatsApp or through someone placing a phone call. We have a product which can help you do the fulfillment, do that delivery from the outlet to the store at a certain service level, right? And given our coverage, we are scaling up, and the idea is to obviously to scale up across the top 25, 30 cities and go beyond and offer the hyperlocal service in those cities.
That's very interesting, because I think if I speak for the restaurant industry, I think the time has come that order generation and order delivery needs to be a fixed price quotient rather than a percentage of the revenue. So I think that's where you and SAURABH will, I think, be very helpful to the industry.
Yeah.
So SAURABH, moving on to you. So you've been really gung-ho about the AlcoBev delivery. So can you tell us how is Shadowfax delivery dealing with the AlcoBev segment? And as we know, it's pretty much a cartel out there. So how have you kind of managed to get into it, and how are you delivering there?
Again, so we are a last mile logistics or a delivery company. So the idea over here is to just enable the way we have enabled all the food players, or all the food players or the grocery players or the pharma players in the market. So given that it's a state matter subject, so first we need to understand how the AlcoBev industry works in India market. It's a state matter subject. It's a state's call. So even during the initial days of COVID, when there was a lot of pressure on the state governments to get some revenues in their pocket, Supreme Court clearly made a statement that we will not be taking any calls on the home delivery matter. It's a state subject. It's a state call. High Court will take that particular call. So some states established themselves, went ahead, took that call, like Maharashtra, like Bengal, like Odisha, like Jharkhand for that matter. And they have come up with their own models. However, everything builds to the fact that it will have some nomenclature in play. You need to be above the age of alcohol drinking, above the alcohol drinking age of that particular state. B, when you are making that delivery in play, the guy who is delivering should be above the age of alcohol drinking age limit. Both the things play a very important role. And the way our industry is structured, there are two kinds of markets in the alcohol bev industry. One is a retailer driven market, which is wherein the retail shops are being offered to individuals, or there are multiple retail shops that have been taken by one individual. Second is, which is a directly state driven retail shops. So a place like Delhi is a state driven retail shops. A place like Maharashtra is retailer driven. So what we have done is we have tied up with governments and we have tied up with retailers. So in the retail driven workshops or the states, what they have done is they are allowed to promote. So players like Living Liquids, players like Beercraft are doing a lot of promotions to drive more traction on their platform. And we are enabling them as a last mile player. Right? Sure. Helping them out in terms of doing the last mile delivery to the end customer. So again, it's been picked up from there. So their job is to get the order in play. Since we are a B2B business, we are into a B2B business and we have no aspirations to get into B2C. Once the order has been come, to fulfill that particular order, it is our responsibility. And we have got all those checks and balances in place, wherein we are able to do KYC, we are able to do check in advance by the skill map of ours, that whether this guy is capable enough to drive, how long has he been working with us, and whether is he above the legal drinking age of that particular state. And the same has been replicated in Bengal, and same is being replicated in Odisha. And we are trying our full square heads to enter into Jharkhand, and obviously Haryana and Punjab are also into play. They're still defining their policies, and as the policy will come out, we will be happy to engage with them, be it on a state level or be it at a retailer-driven level. Yeah, that's the major crux of it.
Interesting. So, VRAJ, I mean, I believe that there's a treasure trove of data that we're sitting on now. How do you think we can use it to enhance hyperlocal and regular deliveries for food companies? What would be your suggestions to the 3PLs and the food players operating in this field?
I think there's a few trade-offs to consider, right? The responsiveness versus the efficiency that you want to play with. One of the things is you could actually have, when we say hyperlocal, how do you marry the demand pattern with the right infrastructure to deliver it? That is the first thing that comes to my mind, because you could have, so if you start aggregating some of these food orders, and if you go down to the zip code level, what you're actually getting is a directory of people's tastes and habits of eating.
Sure.
And if you were to think about somebody like a Swiggy who controls that data, right? They are in the business of data. They are actually building, I think, in my opinion, they're building one of the largest repositories of tastes and habits in this country. Because tomorrow, if you want to start a restaurant or if you want to start a particular business around food, that information is gold. So what you're actually doing is that you're actually building an alternate revenue stream in one way, soon enough. And it's interesting that you mentioned before, Sanket, that the variable pay model versus the fixed cost kind of an outgo that these guys, Sabya and SAURABH, can enable. The incentives to get onto that have to be matched, right? And those incentives have to be somehow parked with the guy who's preparing the food and the restaurant, which means that you have to be in the game of not only delivering, you also have to get into the game of sharing some of that information with your restaurant providers and using that as a lever for them to do better, to schedule better, and to plan their activities better. From your perspective as a delivery provider, you could look at micro focus zones. You could look at, like, for example, in this zip code, if I know that X number of pav bhajis sell per hour, and they usually come from, say, a restaurant called Classic, which is here in central Mumbai, then do you just park up a whole bunch of people outside, or do you actually create some sort of an alternate facility where you say, I create a multi-day service model where I'm able to bring this into some sort of a warming warehouse or some sort of a accessorized infrastructure where I can bring this, I can create stock out of it, and I can increase delivery speed and accuracy and taste and quality at the same time. So I think it will all come down to sharing of data, how you manage that information cluster, and of course, how do you build your facilities in accordance with that data that you're actually getting. So I think that will be important as a lever for cost management and even for revenue top line. Yeah.
I think those mobile heating vans is something to ponder upon. So Sabya, how does your foray into hyperlocal delivery plan to enhance the pan to mouth experience for consumers, so to say? I mean, what steps do you plan to take in that?
So I think starting off, like I said, like in my last sort of this is providing a fulfillment service to people, especially who are looking at a reliable partner, beyond the aggregators, who can sort of fulfill their demands from whatever channels they get, right? The second is, improving the experience, both for the client, in this case, the food industry, as well as the end customer. For the client, essentially, ensuring that there is a set of products that people can use for both, creating orders, pushing orders to us, as well as getting updates, right? So for some of the larger clients, what we do is we go in for a API level sort of integration with their POS systems, with their order management systems, or a third-party order management platform. So we're trying to work with a bunch of third-party order management platforms who in turn have onboarded a bunch of these QSR chains and restaurants and so on, right? So essentially having our product integrated with a bunch of tech platforms so that, it becomes really plug and play. So anyone who wants to start with us literally, and you are already using that platform, you can essentially start within a week, right? After getting certain tests and pilots done, right? Now for a larger bunch of players, right? Now mid-size or smaller players where an integration may not be possible due to whatever reason, what we are doing is we have a product where people can essentially just fill in certain order details, and that gets that flows into our system, right? It's as easy as just filling certain orders on a web-based form, right? And those order details come to us, right? So I think we are quite flexible in the way we can take order information and pass back status updates to the restaurant at the outlet level, and which makes it also scalable, right? So, and therefore, whether you are on a homegrown POS system or you are working with a third-party order management POS system, or in some cases, you may not want to integrate due to whatever reason, we have a product which allows you to use our service and so on. So I think that's one, right? Where, getting the whole onboarding order management experience for outlet, right, quite seamless, right, in both in terms of orders and taking orders and providing status updates, right?
Sure.
For the end consumer, the idea is about obviously one is this whole service level, right? How soon can you sort of pick up order, get it delivered, and second is I think the whole transparency around what would be your likely ET of the rider, providing status updates in case there are delays, all of that, right? To that extent, our product ensures that, we can sort of provide that kind of facility, such as a real-time tracking of rider, providing a ETA level information. And that information we push back to our client, right? And the client can essentially pass on to the end customer, right? In some cases, the restaurant or whichever the outlet is in their platform can sort of take this information and display it on an interface to the end customer. For cases where that's not possible, we are building an interface which, very similar to a map where you can see a rider on the map, right? And you can track the rider and get the ETA. And essentially, we can send a link and the client essentially just sends that link to the end customer, right? So both from a, both from a client and an end customer perspective, we are trying to make it simple and provide a sort of a full tech stack kind of solution, which is usable across a bunch of clients, right? The third thing I think which has sort of come about in this whole lockdown days is the whole contactless delivery part, right? Where people want to get a delivery done without actually ringing the doorbell or without actually making any kind of contact with the customer. So product has features which allows you to do that. So for instance, taking a picture of the sort of delivery sort of being done at the doorstep or at the gate and sort of getting it uploaded, which sort of gets verified, or going to a OTP based verification where you are not speaking to the, as in you speak to the customer over a phone, you're not face to face, right? But you're still ensuring that the delivery essentially gets done, right? So getting those kind of elements into picture. I think these are some of the key things we're looking at. Yeah.
Great. So, Vraj, I mean, you've mentioned that you are a packaging optimization expert as well. So, how important a role can packaging play in indirectly aiding the experience a hyperlocal player can provide to the the end consumer?
So I'm not a packaging expert, but I do understand package delivery very well. So this is one thing that that I touched upon, right? When we guys were talking internally about how the beer was flat in the order that was sent. I think this is the most fundamental thing. And I see somebody has asked a very interesting question in terms of there is a requirement of careful handling of food delivery of cakes with frosting or having a cool box. I think that kind of nails the tone here, right? Because if you had to go get a cake which had all this brilliant icing, and there are custom cakes that are done which have pictures of Moana or pictures that your kids love, the last thing you want is to jeopardize that when you're paying about $5,000-6,000 for a kilo of that kind of cake. Now, how do you optimize packaging for that? I think that is going to be a very key, very important part and consideration of food delivery, because if you also take food that's Indian food into consideration, containerization works, but it just doesn't work for somebody who wants to just eat a meal from a box, right? How do you make how do you do packaging which stays warm, which keeps food fresh, which does not, throw things around here and there, mix things up, and which can still be delivered quickly and at scale, right? If you take the example of what the hot box was, right, in pizza delivery, or and this was something that Domino's and Pizza Hut did way back in the early 2000s. So it's not that packaging and delivery cannot be innovated upon, but I do feel that all the 3PLs and even the restaurants who are providing this to the 3PLs and to the delivery guys, they will need to invest in some sort of a better packaging so that they are able to provide food safely at quality, which is hot, which does not lose its taste, and which can be transported through multiple means of transportation, right? Be it a scooter, be it a truck, be it a small pickup truck, be it a rickshaw, doesn't matter. It has to stand the velocity of Indian roads, and shakes and bakes on that. So I think it's going to be a critical feature in differentiation and in quality and in delivery. Yes, definitely.
So, Saurabh, I did read about your tie-ups with the meat delivery players. So, given that it's a highly perishable commodity, how does Shadowfax manage its deliveries?
So, taking up the cue from what VRAJ was talking about, it's very important the way players are actually packaging their product when it comes to end delivery. So, if you're talking about players, larger players like Licious or Fresh Chicken, or Nandu's for that matter, who's very much prevalent in the southern side of the market. What these guys are doing is they are ensuring that from the moment the meat comes out of the butchery, once it's been packed, it's been fairly well shelled and well maintained in the right temperature. And when the last mile is happening, right, these guys are ensuring that there are right containers in play, right? When the delivery boy is out to the last leg to deliver it to the end customer, right? So there are right containers or bags. The way our bags are designed, these are heavily insulated bags, so they can manage the temperature in which the food, whether it is hot or cold, has been given to them for at least 45 minutes to 1 hour. So the moment that he steps out of the last mile or the retail shop for the last leg, all the deliveries are ensured within next 1 hour, and it is one of the key play in the entire meat delivery format, be it as well as ice creams, which are highly perishable in nature. Players like Naturals, players like Baskin Robbins. In fact, Swiggy also does that, and we get a lot of ice cream orders. Players like Polar Bear, which is again, highly penetrated in the southern market. All these players are ensuring the packaging is at the right level so that things can move in accordance. For example, naturals, in fact, still in today's world as well, he's still driving his lot of products from Mumbai, from Pune, because that's the manufacturing plant. And he uses a lot of dry ice to move that particular product. And in fact, if you ask for larger containers and if you want him to package it in a way that it should last for a good 4 or 5 hours, he will ensure that he packages in a way that the temperature does not get loose and the product quality still remains intact. So, packaging as well as the speed of delivery will be the prime importance over here when you are driving this entire bit.
Sure. So, Sabya, you mentioned that, you're going to work with the larger food chains as well as the mom and pop stores, so to say. So you think your foray into the hyperlocal might aid the food industry in getting back to generating orders for self organically, as in to have a better connect with their end consumer? Are you going to, is your tech support also going to help them in a way to do that, to generate their own orders?
Yes. So I think, to start off with, I think it's more about, providing a very reliable fulfillment solution, which, as I said, right, which could become a sort of a reliable alternative to, fulfilling an order on any aggregator platform, right? And therefore, to that extent, the kind of service level and the features that an end customer would expect when someone orders from a Zomato or a Swiggy or any aggregator platform, the similar kind of fulfillment experience is what we, targeting for, right? Now, whether it is, providing a certain kind of service level in terms of, getting order picked up within, let's say, 15 minutes of, you placing an order and then getting it delivered within the next 30 minutes, or it's in terms of, providing visibility of, where the rider is, getting the real-time tracking of the rider, providing an ETA solution, right? So that kind of, product or tech, right, is provided to all kinds of clients we onboard. Now, irrespective of whether you are a larger chain or you are a sort of a standalone outlet, right? The way the way the client would get onboarded on a platform, the way that order information will flow, data set could be different, but we have a different set of products for onboarding these variety of clients, right? So I think what I see is, if right now, I think there are a lot of, both large, mid-size and smaller sort of restaurants, QSR outlets and so on, who are looking at doing demand generation of their own, right? And they are either they have a very strong customer base, and even if they don't have a well-established platform, they are getting orders over phone calls, over WhatsApp, and so on, right?
Sure.
Our idea is, how do we provide a fulfillment service where you can take in orders across all of these kind of channels and, provide a fulfillment service irrespective of how that order is generated, right? To that extent, therefore, we become a reliable fulfillment partner, right? Obviously, the marketing demand generation is largely dependent upon, the establishment itself, how they get it done. Another way we're trying to do this is, as I said, partnering with certain, either, tech platforms or discovery platforms, for instance, who are sort of enabling that kind of, discovery for a given establishment, or helping, reach out to a larger audience, right? And we are essentially again, being integrated with them both from a tech and from a service standpoint. And therefore, if you're using one of these platforms, you can sort of really start using a service, right? I think the last point here is, lot of restaurants want to cater to a larger sort of consumer base, which goes beyond, let's say, a smaller radius, right? So typically you would see the radius is getting restricted to a 3 to 5 kilometer kind of radius from establishment, right? But there are a lot of specialty people who may not have a significant reach across a city, but they have clientele which resides in other segments or beyond a 5 kilometer radius, right? So we have a product where we can make that happen as well, right? So if you want to send something, to a customer, like for instance, Vaj mentioned about designer cakes, right? So if you're ordering a expensive designer cake, you don't want to restrict yourself to ordering from the nearest establishment or establishment which is just 3 to 4 kilometers away, right? The establishment which you like or the product which you like may be 7, 8, 10 kilometers away, right? Now we have a product which can cater to that as well, right? So essentially tying up with a bunch of platforms, providing information which you can share with the customer on how reliable the service is, as well as improving your coverage, increasing your coverage of delivery. These are some ways in which you can sort of tap into a larger consumer base.
Sure. So interesting. Saurabh, after restaurant, if there's any other industry that has stores in every nukkad, it's the pharma industry.
Yeah.
Then, at least to my knowledge, why haven't you been able to crack just-in-time deliveries with them as yet? Or
Okay, so there are the challenges are twofold, right? First is the norms that are required to generate those orders online or offline. Second is the fulfillment of the product. So in spite of the fact that there are only 15,000 to 20,000 SKUs only in the pharma space, which are required in the entire India market, there is a limited availability of the same. However, people have not been able to establish that kind of bent in the entire market where they are able to drive this particular network in a much more sophisticated way. So what do I mean by that? So players like Apollo, who have more than 3,500 stores in India market, wherein Domino's have only 1,100 stores. So if you'll compare both of them, if you place an order for pizza in Domino's, it is assured that you will get it in 30 minutes. But there is no assurity for the same that if you place an order for a medicine that you will get it. The primary point number one to be noted is that there are prescription-based drugs which are to be looked at very, very in a minute way, that people should not be falsifying the same. That's point number one. Point number two is people have not been able to reach or are still not investing into technology play. What these 1mgs, pharmacies, netmeds and the medlives of the world have done to drive this as a market. So what is the significant difference? So Apollo as a player is more of a I would say family-owned business, right? So what they're looking at is EBITDA, profit margins, wherein players like these are not looking at these things. Online players, they are looking at what is the speed of growth that we can look at. If you look at just the last year's number in 2018-19, there was more than $1 billion that was invested in this particular space. However, if you look at the entire size of the market, online market play today, it's not more than 2 lakh orders a day. Wherein, if I'm talking about old age people, regular people who wants the supply of the medicine on a very regular basis, it should easily be touching not less than 15 lakh to 20 lakh market, 20 lakh orders a day. However, they're still far behind. Nobody's focusing on that particular space and nobody's actually investing at the right touch points. Apollo, Guardian, Wellness Forever, Generico, all these players have a lot of capability. And believe you me, there would be times in the coming years wherein this market will pick up and would be a highly operative market wherein if not 30 minutes, then at least 2-hour delivery is still feasible. And like food market, it's a very thin line of business, well, a thin margin business. Sure. However, pharma as an industry is a heavy margin business and still people are not able to drive that particular number. We as a logistics player clearly understand this particular problem and have those solutions in play already. We are in talks to make them understand to drive this particular market in much more sophisticated way, wherein they will have a larger reach. B, they will be able to earn more profit because it will be a D2C play, direct to the consumer. C, they would be having a better control or a share and they will be able to drive it in a much more cleaner, or I would say open manner, wherein all the facts and figures can be produced to government if required in the later stages. So yes, if it is more of a industry driven problem wherein there are some people who are trying to solve the problem, but they don't have an expertise for the medicine. People who have the expertise for medicine are not essentially driving that particular force because they're looking at the EBITDAs of the world. So understood. Yeah, that is a gap.
Got it. So Vraj, I remember the Toshiba UPS partnership for maintenance you had mentioned to me. I thought that was really interesting. Do you think 3PL players can take a leaf out of that and consider getting into last mile assembly of sorts? And would that probably kind of reduce the average distance and time from ladle to mouth?
I think so. That is a transformational example, right? Toshiba became the largest seller of laptops in the US by 2010.
Sure.
And UPS and they tied up in 2004 for service repair responses, because one of the key criteria in laptops is how quickly can I get it fixed if it breaks down. And 2004 at that time, and I'm spending just a few seconds explaining the background for everybody's, because I know a lot of people here come from different backgrounds. So what they did was that earlier on, what used to happen was the repair would go all the way back to the plant, and it would come back subject to warranty agreement, this, that, aging, whose fault it is. Once all of those things are out of the way, it could take anywhere between 10 to 12 days. Okay, as a service level. Now, in the US, at a time when people were adopting technology so fast, that was a deal breaker. So what they thought of was, they went to UPS, and UPS said, you know what, we'll put up a 10,000 square feet facility close to Worldport, which is basically where all their brown tails, they call them brown tails, their Boeings come in. They have more Boeings than some of the largest companies in the world who fly people. So Worldport is where all these planes start to come in. So they said, we'll just put a warehouse, and the proximity of that to the Worldport would be it's instantaneous. And since we fly all over the US, we can pick it up from any place, because all UPS stores are available for dispatch. So all you need to do as a customer is go and drop it at the UPS store, and then it'll find itself within, say, a day at Worldport. UPS hired people, trained them, right, to fix the laptops. And in 1 or 2 days after that, they were shipping them back. So what used to take 10 days is now 3 days. So that's amazing, right? Responsiveness. In the food business, of course, it's subject to so many different parameters, but you could think of it in terms of the first mile and the last mile. Can you do things at a warehousing level where you can actually take stuff off of the restaurant's hands? Like, I love the example that Sabya gave, that if I'm a guy who wants to expand beyond the boundaries of, say, my business, which is, say, 10 square kilometers, and if I want to go 200, 300, 400 square kilometers, what do? Can you imagine a business, or reimagine the business, that you are in the business of value addition? Like, so you have a cloud kitchen chain, you have a distribution and warehousing chain, you have a cold chain, you have a warm chain. You bring all of these things together to assemble product and deliver and keep it hot. And you apply the same principles that we all do, right? Safety, stock, replenishment, fulfillment, all of that. But you could actually look at yourself like a chain of cloud kitchens stitched to one another. And your providers could either provide you product which is raw, or it could be just raw material, or it could be the finished product. And your packaging and all the great things we spoke about before actually help you create that scale. So I think that's going to be the future. Absolutely, it's going to be the future. And this is where I think 3PLs will be of major, major significance, because if somebody wants to grow their business beyond boundaries, right? This is like what Maersk and some of the biggest 3PLs on the planet do, right? They say, do not think about the limitations of where your product can be. Your product can take you anywhere. That's what they say, right? Because they can deliver it anywhere. So I think that's the same mindset we'll have to bring about in this business. And I'm pretty sure when customers are growing their restaurants at such a pace, they would be more than happy to split the bill with you. So I think that's going to be a game changer.
One of the interesting things that I would want to highlight, since we're discussing about, breaking the boundaries and taking it ahead than a stipulated kilometer, is there are two aspects to it when we're talking about food in specific. One would be, is it okay to drive to that extent so that the quality that you're trying to deliver is still intact? That's point number one. Point number two is the cost of doing that particular business. That delivery boy stretching up 2 kilometers or 3 kilometers obviously is losing onto that efficiency bit. Will he be able to earn that, and is the customer ready to pay you that? So these are the two important aspects that needs to be addressed. And first one can be solved by packaging, because definitely there are players who are doing very good packaging, players like Yum Yum Chop, for example. If you'll order their food would be delivered to you hot and crisp. Mama Gota for that matter. Secondly, are people ready to pay you for that extra mile? Is one of the very important questions that needs to be addressed, because right now what's been happening is, so far the food industry has been only fighting on the cheaper food, which is not should not be the case anymore. You know why Domino's has opened 1100 stores and have been able to, it's a classic story that they were the pioneers in the delivery industry for food that for that matter. You know, when 30-minute delivery was like a dream, they were offering 30 minutes of free, right? Now everybody is offering 30 minutes. And the primary reason is that they have been able to create a denser environment that every 2 kilometers you'll find a Domino's and you'll find the same experience. So these are the two very important questions that needs to be addressed while, you know, taking a call that whether should I be going for 8 kilometers, 10 kilometers kind of delivery. You know, delivery is not a hub, but A, there's a charge to it. B, you also need to be cognizant of the fact that the quality of product that we are trying to deliver is of the utmost importance.
I think that's a good point, Saurabh. You know, they face a similar problem in the cement business, although slightly different. The problem is called the low price to weight ratio, similar to what you're saying, because that's why you'll see that a cement manufacturer does not have one gigantic plant anywhere. They have multiple plants within a country of operation, because the cost of transportation is anywhere between 26 to 30% of the total cost of goods manufactured. So now, if they break that and they're not able to price their product competitively, you're in deep trouble. So I agree with you, but they are able to solve it through more plants.
Exactly. So that's why I gave the example of Domino's, wherein they have spread themselves across, have 1100 outlets established, and are delivering at every 30 minutes that there is a Domino's, right? So ultimately what they are covering is not more than 2.5 kilometers. So that's the beauty they have been able to play, and they have been able to drive this as a first mile, you know, optimization as well, wherein when the drop points tend to happen, or when the supply comes in for the cheese, for the pizza base, for the various tomato sauce for that matter. So all these things are going in one way and they are able to optimize. So yeah, it's very, very important to understand whether we should be taking that call, and if we are taking that call, quality of my product, B, is the customer ready to pay that much amount? Are two very important aspects that needs to be considered.
Just to add to that, you know, so I mean, a lot of times we've seen that for the mistake of the the restaurant, the aggregator or the delivery company gets battered because I think a lot of people most consumers do not know who's responsible for what in the chain. So you know, it might not be a bad idea probably for I think the players to probably take some of that anyways, and you know, kind of make it a more seamless experience for end consumers. I don't know. I mean, that was just a comment.
See, again, it can be done. It is not a problem at all. However, we also, again, if the quality is going for a toss, then obviously it's a problem. You're not delivering the right product.
Sure. So, Saurabh, do you want to comment on your partnership with Flipkart that is just being spoken about? I mean, you mastered hyperlocal in food and grocery. Now I think you're taking it to e-commerce. Yes. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, would be happy to. So the primary focus again, you know, the world is trying to shrink now. So everybody, when we started, you know, everybody wanted things to move from one place to the other. And what VRAJ was just mentioned, that UPS just opened up, you know, the warehouses, larger warehouses. Similarly, what Flipkart is trying to do is trying to set up a hyperlocal network. So imagine a world when you say, I want a delivery, I want a mobile phone and it is in your hand in next 2 hours. Apple launches a new phone and you place an order and it's there in your hand in next 2 hours. Is the dream come true? We are making it happen for Flipkart. So we are the exclusive partners for Flipkart when it comes to hyperlocal delivery. And the way we are driving this particular business for them is 90% of the things would be available to you, be it grocery, be it you know, apparels, be it mobile phones, be it laptops, would be available to you guys in next 2 hours in the coming space of time. And this will not take much time. So the way we have put our expansion plan in place, in next 1.5 years, there would be we will be covering at least the tier 1 cities, which is top 6-7 cities, and we will be able to drive a larger network there. There are more than 200 plus stores that we'll be launching in next 1.5 hours to drive this kind of services to the consumers. And this is all coming for you guys. So what Amazon Prime did for certain category, we are doing this for Flipkart for the entire bit. So be it, as I mentioned, so anything that you're looking for. So except food, which is obviously not Flipkart's forte, but yes, except food, everything would be available at a doorstep. And if there are certain people who are in Bangalore, this delivery service is already available for you guys. And it is definitely, it's an express plus slotted delivery, which is available. You can book a slot for 2 hours in the near future, or you can get it express in the next 90 minutes.
I think you guys have given amazing insights on 3PL and supply chain, and I think a lot of foodpreneurs are looking at tying up with guys like you. I mean, we want to now start organically generating our own orders, and obviously partners like yourself and Sabya will obviously help us do that faster.
I think one interesting thing that was missed out while generation of the order is concerned, we also do pamphlet distribution.
Was that right? Interesting.
So this is a very old philosophy followed by Domino's. Now it's been we are religiously doing that, but obviously we do charge our customers for the same.
Sure.
But for the sake of ensuring that there is a mass scale distribution that is happening, we ensure for 2 hours or 3 hours, we can also run bike rallies for you. So given that in a particular cluster, the way we have created this entire environment is in a particular cluster, we have a place like Lajpat Nagar or Andheri West or Bandra in Mumbai or Koramangala in Bangalore. We've got more than 200-300 delivery boys at a point in time. So during our lean hours, we can do bike rallies for you. We can do pamphlet distributions for you. And which is obviously depending upon the scale that you're looking for us, and we have mechanisms in play to drive these numbers.
That's
very interesting way of keeping the capacity and utilization going.
Exactly. Yeah. That's very practical thinking.
Very practical, smart. Yeah.
See, what we are looking for, we are in a penny business. That's what we discuss, right? So a 40-50 rupee delivery, right? And the guy needs to earn 700-800 rupees. How should we be doing it? So we need to earn every inch of it. So yeah, that's what. Yeah.
Very interesting. So, I think if all three of you could give your closing remarks on the food delivery, 3PL, supply chain, and how fellow entrepreneurs should deal with the aftermath. If we can start with Sabya.
Yeah. See, I think while hyperlocal was always an important aspect, for food. Right. But in general, if I see post the lockdown, right, the whole current scenario, actually hyperlocal has become all the more important, right? And it has transcended other boundaries in terms of, going beyond food, medicines, grocery, but also looking at retail, right? With a lot of your offline stores either being shut or working under very restricted capacity, right? So the whole point around is, how do you get customers products delivered at doorstep while maintaining a certain level of, service and experience, right? So what I see is hyperlocal becoming all the more important, and therefore, the ability to provide a more seamless service across multiple segments, whether you're delivering food or you're delivering something else as well, right? Your ability to sort of seamlessly do that, I think, will define in the way you can create and run a multiple network, right? So as Saurabh mentioned, right? So it's a very low margin business, right? You are expecting a delivery to be done in a very sort of within a very your ticket size is very small, right? And at the same time, you are expecting a certain service level where the delivery happens within a 30 to 45 minutes for food, right? Or whatever, 60 odd minutes for grocery or so, right? So from a 3PL perspective, the idea is how do you create a network with as many sort of use cases built across, right? Which can then sort of drive down your cost per delivery and provide the same level of experience while keeping your cost down, right? To that extent, therefore, we see hyperlocal becoming a lot more important in the last 3 to 4 months, a lot more use case coming into the picture. And as a result, a lot more sort of thinking and investment going behind hyperlocal. Food industry, which is probably the oldest user of hyperlocal delivery, right? A hyperlocal service obviously stands to benefit, because when a lot of this innovation, both in terms of cost optimization and in terms of product comes into this, right? Like we're trying to do, food industry will obviously be one of the key beneficiaries of that. Yeah. So I would see, I would expect a lot of action within the hyperlocal space from both players, like specialized players like Shadowfax, from us, but also from, a lot of other players, like, let's say, these e-pharmacies and so on, right, who are trying to own the entire stack, right? I would see a lot more innovation, optimization coming into the industries.
Thanks, Sabya, for all your insights. I hope you reach all your 18,000 pin codes with Hyperlocal as well in record time. Saurabh, if you could give your closing remarks, please.
Yeah, two important aspects that I would want to highlight. India is a market wherein we have seen a drastic shift from free home delivery to today's scenario where delivery is charged now. We need to be very cognizant, and this is specifically for the food entrepreneurs who are trying to do something in the food space. I've personally seen a lot of food startups growing, picking up pace, and then crashing down. Primary reason, the Indian audience, the way they behave, these are like discount eaters. Don't go for them. Build your steady pace, make a brand, go out in the market and command that price. That is the only thing that I would want to give you as an, players like, home chef players like one of the primary examples in Mumbai, which got funding from Tata as well, had to shut down. Primary reason, they were not able to make margins in spite of the fact their food was good. So the idea should be is to get hold of that category of people who are ready to invest. And if they're asking you for food, they're looking for the quality of the food, not just because of the fact that you're cheapest in the market. You should not be competing on the cheaper lines, because ultimately you're setting up yourself for the failure, because you, in the long term play, you will not be able to sustain. Point number two is, in terms of delivery space, it's a convenience business. There are charges to it. You can optimize that as well. However, people looking to squeeze it out, not able to drive it in a right fashion, and not communicating it to the customer that it's a convenience which is being offered to you and you got to pay, is something which you should not be doing. So what you should be pushing for is asking the consumer that you should be paying for the delivery charge, or your average ticket size for a particular order should not be less than 500 rupees. Otherwise, it is very hard to sustain. It is not a sustainable model then.
Saurabh, I think your closing remarks were as practical as all your insights that you gave. And just for the record, I was a co-founder for in the initial days of the startup that you spoke about, the Mumbai-based startup that you spoke about. I know, both of us know what we're talking about. Yeah. VRAJ, if you could give your closing remarks, please.
I think both Saurabh and Sabya have given a very good summary. All I would say is one point. See, two things rather. First, the COVID impact, even if, let's say, magically tomorrow a vaccine appears and all of us get inoculated and we are fine and dandy, what has fundamentally happened is there's a shift in the way people are consuming things. There is a noted shift as far as the channel of consumption is concerned, and virtual has become the matter of choice. So you will see, and what that has led to also is entrepreneurship and innovation. A lot of people now who've experimented or dabbled in some sort of food creation and delivery through a partner or by doing it organically or whatever, a lot of them have figured out that there is a entrepreneurial zeal and they can actually capitalize on this wave. The second part is restaurants, and I have a lot of friends here, some of them from a lot of South Mumbai friends who actually own some of the nicest restaurants in Bombay. And these are classical restaurants that have been around for 40, 50 years, right? And they still make lots of money. they are saying fundamentally this whole period has jolted them, but at the same time, it's given them a new set of eyes to look at the market. So they are looking at creating these channels of delivery organically. Okay. And they are saying, because we want to make sure that that our name is protected in the market. So we will not risk giving this to a third party unless they can partner with us at a very, very deep level. So what's going to happen is it's almost like white labeling software and selling it, right? So you're going to see the white labeling of this emerge a lot. And your APIs are going to, as Sabya said, the API part, you're going to actually look at a lot of these APIs for white labeling a lot of these restaurant businesses and helping them grow. The second part that I want to say is governance is going to become a big part of this model. I think as this explosion of food delivery or food creators, food delivery people happens, the 3PLs are always at the brunt of it because they are facing the customer. And what you got, where you got it from, was it kosher, was it safe, licious, for example. I like if they were to introduce some sort of a blockchain by which they were able to certify and say, this is where my meat is coming from, right? And it is halal or it is kosher, as the Jewish would say, or it's jerk or whatever. But the point is there something they can do that the 3PL can then use to say, this is what certifies the product that I'm carrying? What are the kind of controls can you put in cloud kitchens? Can you put artificial intelligence-based controls, detection mechanisms by which you say, if this business is going to scale, we have to scale with it. And we've got to make sure that we protect our interests and the customer's interests at the end of it. Because last mile often means you're the first person to get the brunt. So that's the only thing I would say. And that's the only message I would leave there, because this is going to actually lead to a very exciting time for food delivery and for logistics combined. So that's the future in my book. Yeah.
Thanks, Raj. I mean, you've left us with a lot of food for thought and made sure that we'll reimagine a lot of strategies. Thank you, all of you, for taking out time. I know it's difficult. I mean, you guys are like the busiest guys today with all the deliveries happening. Thank you so much for taking out time. And Trupti, I'll leave it to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, SABYASACHI, as well as VRAJ and SAURABH and SANKET for hosting the webinar. Aniket, if we can have the slide put across. So we have these events coming in a coming week. So have a look at it, choose your choice, and then would love to host you guys again, especially the speakers, and look forward to the next session. We do have a lot of mentoring sessions as well, which is coming in. So you can definitely log on for that and get like a slot of 15 minutes with our mentor and make use of that. So thank you so much, guys. It was a wonderful session. Yes, the recording will be put up in the next 2 days. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Sanket. Nice meeting you. Saurabh,
Yeah.
Sabya. Yeah, nice talking to everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.